Okay, good evening. Calling to order the September 12, 2021 Lake Washington School Board study session. Let the record reflect all board members are present and participating remotely. Under the recent proclamation from Governor Inslee, we are able to have in-person public meetings, provided that we are able to comply with the requirements of the miscellaneous venues guidance. This board values public participation and engagement in the meetings of the board and will continue to comply with the laws of the Open Public Meetings Act and current emergency requirements related to miscellaneous venues. If the miscellaneous venue items or guidance, and all of the requirements related to COVID-19 cannot be met, the school board must hold their meetings remotely and provide access to those meetings via live stream or audio. Due to recent non-compliance at board meetings, the board has determined to hold remote meetings. The board will notify the public of the location and mode of its board meetings through the board meetings tab on board docs. At this time, it is planned that all board meetings scheduled in September, October, and November will be held remotely unless there are changes in the guidance provided. Board meetings, study sessions, and special board meetings will continue to be live streamed and viewable on the district's website, www.lwsd.org. If you are unable to live stream the meeting, you may call to listen. That phone number is 425-936-2813, conference ID 37127. And you are also welcome to email the board at any time. The email address is boardmembers@lwsd.org. Okay, we have one item for the study session tonight, and that is another study session on the development of OE14. Dr. Holman, can you get us started on the conversation tonight?
Absolutely. And tonight really is a follow-up from the board's September 7th, 2021 study session. At that time, the board discussed OE14. The board has received significant feedback from the community, and the board has a commitment to listen to the community and adopt a policy that does reflect the interests of the board and the voice of community. And so this really is that next step. At the September 7th meeting, the board discussed really that opening section of the policy, and is that the right place for the board to truly express its values, its commitments, and really to be able to articulate how the board kind of sees the overall work in regard to OE14. And so there was discussion around taking that language and then really developing a resolution that identified some of the historical pieces, some of the data, some of the different components that are found within the policy, but to be able to articulate it to a much greater degree, and then to really have some commitments, because really the governance structure that the board operates under doesn't really allow for the board to articulate the commitments and kind of the proactive nature that you're seeing this work in terms of the board governance part. And so that's why the resolution was developed. As all of us know, it was a pretty tight timeline to be able to get a draft resolution completed. And so I took a first run at it and then worked with Director Bleasner and Director Sage on Thursday just to kind of go over. We spent about 90 minutes just really kind of going through what was it that the board wanted to articulate in a resolution. And so did some revisions there. I walked away, did some further work, then sent that to both Director Bleasner and Director Sage. Director Bleasner then took the next shot at doing some revisions and edits. And just as recently as this afternoon, via communication, we finalized the draft that you see here tonight, knowing that it's here for discussion for the whole board. And why is that important? Because with those components taken out of the policy, we want to make sure that we actually are reflecting the values and the statements that the board had in the policy previously, because there were statements that were very compelling and did align with the board's values. You will also see in board docs an updated version of OE 14 with that language significantly pared down at the beginning to really align more with the policy structure that the board has in operational expectations. And we did discuss at the September 7th meeting some of the policy statements, but also the directive to the superintendent. Those have been updated based on board feedback and are there for discussion tonight as well. So one topic, but two components to the discussion, both the resolution and the updated policy. And so my thinking is that probably start with the policy and then maybe transition to the resolution, knowing that it's important for both to have time for the board to discuss and dialogue. Does that sound good, Eric? You're muted. You're muted, Eric.
Sorry, I was following directions. I wanted to make sure that everyone had been able to access those documents on board docs. Okay, good. But yeah, let's take it in that order.
Okay. And so do you want me to go ahead and share my screen with...
yeah, that actually...
Okay, great.
Easier.
Let me go ahead and do that. Okay. Okay, and so I'll just go ahead, I'll go through the whole policy, and then we can go back in and discuss the different components. And so you can see here just an opening statement around the policy. It's very high level. It identifies really what is the purpose, and it's really around the responsibility to ensure academic success for all students by closing opportunity gaps and providing equitable and inclusive working and learning environments for students and staff. It's that acknowledgement that this is systems level work and that it is systems level inequities that are creating barriers, and that our students come to us whole, they come to us as who they are, and it's our job to make sure that our system responds to students because it's not their fault. They come to us ready to learn. They come to us with all of these background experiences that we can capitalize on as we think about our mission and vision really is for each and every one of our students. You can see there the opening policy statement goes into talking about the different factors that we're thinking about when we think about an equity policy: race, ability, religion, language, culture, ethnicity, income, sex and gender, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, and other aspects of student identity. And that we must interrupt, identify, and remove the systemic barriers that are causing predictability of success and failure. And so that really is the opening statement. And then the directive to the superintendent, as the board knows, we discussed and modified some statements that were provided to us. And so this was a combination of some feedback we received, but also some language that directors provided. And so you can see here the directive is the superintendent shall establish, maintain, and evolve a culture of inclusion and high expectations that values and respects the diversity and lived experience of its students, staff, and families. Specifically, the superintendent shall identify and eliminate discriminatory, inequitable, and biased systems, policies, and practice for 4 specific reasons. 1, to eliminate racist systems, structures, and practices within LWSD, replacing them with anti-racist systems, structures, standards, and practices. 2nd, to ensure equitable opportunities for students. 3rd, to ensure equitable treatment of students. And 4th, to address and close persistent gaps for historically marginalized groups. And number 4, you'll see, is probably different than what we articulated on Tuesday night, and so we'll want to make sure that we kind of talk through that and why, when Director Bleasner and Director Sage and I, we spent a lot of time on number 4, trying to be very specific about what is it that we're trying to say here. And so this is where we landed, and happy to have conversation about that. And then we didn't change any of the superintendent or the policy statements below. other than what were discussed at the study session on the 7th. So with that, why don't we go ahead and start with this opening statement, and then we can just walk through each of the pieces. And Eric, I can't see hands, and so you'll need to facilitate.
No, no problem. I'll traffic cop. I guess I'll just start if that's okay. I'm curious. I'm trying to even find our last draft of number 4 under the directive of the superintendent. I'm curious if somebody could summarize the thinking for the revisions, and also candidly remind me what the revisions are. It's hard with I can't remember where we landed on 4 at our last near the end of our last meeting.
So structurally,
well, I guess maybe I do have it here.
So Eric, yeah, at the end of the last meeting, 4 was basically this clause followed by some language trying to specify how to achieve this end.
Okay.
That it was by raising all students to the same high standards and basically trying to preclude any misinterpretation. But this is something that I'm looking at I see most of the language that's been moved out of 4 in the preamble now, and am comfortable with that as a placement for it, because it really is commitment to raising opportunities and achievement of all learners. And then this is calling out the various dimensions of concern, race, ability, religion, language, culture, ethnicity. And all of these are excellent. So overall, sorry, Eric, I actually want to start with hey, thank you to all 3 of you. This is a lot of careful, thoughtful work, and mostly I'm excited that you managed to improve on something I was starting to be pretty happy with. So, but Eric, feel free to, if you still have pieces of that question that you're not finding in the preamble.
No.
Okay.
No, thanks, Chris. That's helpful. I was just trying to refresh my recollection there before wasting any more time on that. I'm happy with how it's drafted now.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing that I see were the feedback from the community is still concerned with interpretation at this point on many pieces of it. But quite frankly, that is our next step. The interpretation, taking it to the administration and having them come back with not just interpretation of what we were asking for, but actually getting into what will be done to address this. I mean, how will they close persistent gaps? How do they define historically marginalized groups? And that I'm very excited about, but I understand that there's still some residual concern in the community. And for better, for worse, I feel like we have to move forward to the interpretation part on the administrative side to address that, rather than trying to do it in the board document. But Cassandra, go for it. Director Sage, sorry.
That's okay. Along those lines, after the last study session, I committed to looking at definitions for terms. And when Dr. Holman and Director Bleasner and I met, I really realized that any definitions we come up with lock him into parameters that we might not necessarily want him to have. We might want him to have more opportunity to do good work. And that's why we will define terms with him, or he will define terms, and then it'll be a conversation so that we're all comfortable with what the definitions mean.
Mark, Director Stewart.
Yeah, I like the fact that we're trying to address a feeling in my interpretation of what I've read here. We're trying to address a sentiment in some of the public that this is a zero-sum game. If one group is elevated, another must be diminished. And in my mind, and especially in reading the way the resolution reads now, but to be quite frank, going back to the beginning of our equity work, is not a matter of if one group is elevated, the other group must go down in what's offered to them or what is expected of them. It's the idea of all boats being raised. And to me, that's a commitment to the students. That's what equity is, and as well as the other aspects of trying to address systemic problems. You don't want to create a different inequity. You want to create equity, period. And I think this resolution goes a long way to try and voice that, I hope.
Thanks. Any other comments, questions? Mark, I can't tell if your hand is still up or if it went up again.
I'm going to go down, now it's back up. There's the line, because you just scrolled up for it. Thank you. Well, 14.1 is what I'm looking at. Ensure that students have an anti-racist, inclusive, and equitable, welcoming, and safe school classroom environment. It's not only have, but I think there needs to be some way of trying to help them believe it. We may see it as such an environment, but unless the student perceives it, if he or she still feels it marginalized, then we haven't quite made it. And that concerns me, because there's perception of reality, and perception becomes reality. And God forbid that perception would become a reality in these situations. We want to make sure that we've done it in such a manner that every kid feels safe, everybody feels welcome, everybody feels they have an equal opportunity to learn. And I don't know how we've been addressed to people, any students who may feel otherwise, but if they do, we need to perhaps set up some sort of a mechanism for them to bring this to our attention. And maybe that comes later, but I'm just thinking that if we could address it in the resolution somehow, that might, the more times you say it, the better, to be quite frank. I don't care if we repeat ourselves. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Chris, I'm going to jump in real quick. Mark, completely agree with you. I think that 14.1 captures that right now. That's broad enough to capture that. And when we get indicators back, I would expect that there would be student survey data as part of student perception data as part of this. I completely agree with you that how our students feel about, that is probably, for me at least, that is the key indicator for 14.1 is how our students feel about being in the classroom.
Eric, I would even go to the point of not just having the survey, but if a student feels that he or she there's a problem, they need to have a way to go to someone to address it. One that'll be non-judgmental, but we'll also look at it and find out what's going on.
Agreed. And I think we have that built into policy. I forgot. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah. 100% agreement. Director Carlson, then Director Bleasner.
And Mark, I agree it's important. I also agree with Eric that falls in the realm of we've provided language that the interpretation should include something to address that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to shift gears to another theme that I saw in the feedback in the last couple of days was concern about the word racist versus racism. And I actually am pretty comfortable with the current language of the draft, and here is why. Racist systems are what we're trying to change. The concern seems to be that racism is considered a verb and racist is an adjective applied to a person. But racist systems you can't call them racism systems. So towards that end, I'm actually comfortable with the current structure of the language. I understand where that interpretation, the anxiety is coming from, but I do also feel that at the interpretation level, it'll be very important for our superintendent to get back to us with a very clear statement around bias training versus eliminating racism. defining the terms so that you know you can easily speak to that. But again, this is even though it's a major and a frequent concern that's been expressed in emails to me, it's something that I feel like it has to be addressed as the next step of this process. And it would not be valuable to continue to process this step to try and speak to that one.
Director Blesner, did you have anything to add?
No, actually, it was just the idea that the policy as a whole sometimes addresses those other components when we look through it. So you highlighted that with 14.9 in going through that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments, questions, thoughts on? I think everyone. It seemed like everyone was comfortable with the first part of it, the directive of the superintendent, and we're on to the enumerated steps now.
The only other piece, sorry.
Please.
The only other piece was that introductory component at the top. If people were in agreement to that, that was a summary of what was there prior.
Yeah, and I'm pretty comfortable with including this piece prior to the directive because it does define a small but important component of this, which is when we're talking about a culture of high expectations, but to eliminate discriminatory, inequitable, and biased systems, policies, and practices. But in that preamble, we've got the dimensions that we are calling out today. And those dimensions may not be an exhaustive list historically in the future, but for now, these are the dimensions that we are aware of that we want to speak to as part of equity. So I'm very happy with it. And I think it is appropriate here, even though it's preceding the directive to the superintendent, which I still think is a novel thing, but it's short and sweet enough that I'm very comfortable with it. So thank you. That was a lot of work to get that into this piece, and I appreciate the amount of back and forth that must have taken for the three of you. It's very well done. I have no edits to suggest. I'm comfortable with it. So
I'm comfortable with it too, just to be clear.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So Director Sage and Blesner, I assume that since you were in the room, you're comfortable with it. Director Stewart?
I am. I keep trying to read and we keep scrolling, so hang on a second. Let me pull up a different. I don't have the preamble in the copy I have from the. That wouldn't bother me at all, John. Thank you. Okay, this is going to look like a nitpick, and I think it probably is, but what the hell? I'm known for it. We talk about let's see, where am I? We talk about the for students and staff, and then but it's flipped in the sentence. You see, one part that belongs to, that applies to this to the students is in the first half versus, you see where I'm going? It's just a matter of semantics. By closing gaps, it doesn't matter. I was trying to make it balanced.
Mark, is that the part you were referencing that
I
highlighted?
It's academic success by student. And
so instead of saying learning and working environments,
it's fine. I would just flip it.
Yep, I see
Learning
that.
and working. You see where I'm going? It's just a matter of making it parallel. Sorry, it's the editor in me.
No, thank you. We can make that change.
nothing substantive.
Yeah, this feels very mature, and my concern is that the resolution, so the second document, needs more eyes on it this evening. So I'm actually comfortable being done with this piece.
Yep.
Before we move on, could somebody highlight for me any of the changes to the enumerated part of the policy? When
So
I was
the
just
only
glancing, it's hard
changes
for me to
were
even,
the
I
ones-
didn't even, I'm sorry, go ahead.
They were the ones that we discussed during the study session prior.
Okay.
As what's
Okay.
incorporated in here. I don't believe we made any, I think potentially, actually, that's not true. 14.11, I believe, has a clause at the end to eliminate inequities and promote student success.
In 14.9, what we added on Tuesday of last week was this clause, particularly related to racist or other discriminatory actions. In 14.8, I'm just looking back at the chat since we had to use the chat because we couldn't share. 14.8, we took out language that after decisions, so 14.8, so after, so we took out by implementing and maintaining effective partnerships and communication systems, and we added relevant strategies in district school communications, and then this last portion is all new from what we discussed on Tuesday. It is what we discussed on Tuesday, so that is the new part. In 14.10, we said collect, disaggregate, analyze, and utilize data, so from multiple sources, is academic performance, participation, surveys, and focus groups. And we had to identify inequities in previously, and we added, and to develop and implement strategies towards eliminating those inequities. And then in 14.4, and this was the order we discussed them in, that's why I'm not going in order. It used to say ensure appropriately rigorous expectations. We took out the word appropriately. And inappropriate actually was before supports as well. So we took that out. And we added two words, or two statements, leading to student growth. Success was there previously, and we added the word well-being.
Yeah. Thank you. Director Bleesmer?
So I just have one potential change on 14.8 as I'm reading it again, is when you have incorporate diverse perspectives and culturally relevant strategies in district/school communications and partnerships. My concern is it's not just about the communication, because that implies a one way. It actually is about the interaction we have with different groups and how we're doing that. So that's why I was just thinking we lost a piece of that when we said district initiatives or programs. We sort of lost that piece, I think, when it got pulled out.
If you put interactive communications, would that fit the?
No, because it's not communication. It actually is active engagement in those partnerships of bringing them forward to have diverse and culturally relevant strategies.
Just asking.
So communications, if you just change that to district/school community engagement.
Ah, there we go.
That makes it a two-way street.
Communication and engagement.
I'm okay with that as
Yeah.
well.
Okay. I'm happy either way, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
the concept I agree with. Thank you, Director Blaisner, for thinking of that. I'm fine with either adding and partnerships after communications, or I'm fine with Director Carlson's I guess my preference is Director Carlson's, which is more concise. Which would be, Chris, did I make sure I have this right? Your proposal was to strike communications, replace it with community engagement, or did I have it
it
right?
seems like that's the superset.
Yeah, that was my feeling.
I think we have some concerns too among our parents. We don't communicate well also. So I think engagement and communicate to make sure that it's not just an outreach, but it's once we outreach, we actually listen and hear.
Yeah, and actually, Mark, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Calling out specifically means that
Yeah.
ensures that it will be monitored specifically.
Yeah.
So just after communications and community engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. I have no, sitting here right now, I have no additional edits to this. Anyone else? Hearing none. I guess we'll move to the resolution.
John, can you bump it up one more time? Thank you.
And so you will see language pulled from the former policy embedded into this kind of throughout. And as the board was talking on Tuesday night, you'll kind of see a similar flow. Director Bleasner added these kind of headings to the resolution, which typically aren't in resolutions, but for me, I thought it really helped define the different components throughout the document. Director Bleasner, was your intent to keep these headings in for that clarity?
No, that was not necessarily my intent. My intent was more for me to know how it was structured.
Okay, so I kind of liked it in there because I think it does provide greater readability for understanding what's the purpose in having these sections of the resolution. I'm fine either way, but for me, it was, I liked it.
I think it's great for the idea that a person who comes into the resolution and says, okay, I want to find out something about the actions, the goals, you can make lofty goals, but let's see where the rubber meets the road. And then they go to the sections that really they want to address, and then they go back to the whole thing, perhaps. But it's the idea. I like the idea of the breaking up. Yeah, I agree. I've never seen a resolution with headings, but I love it for that reason.
So I actually would leave them in, but actions that seems to be a summary of past actions. And declaring it as such will keep people's expectations of what they're going to see in that section too. And I've got one other minor thing that I may as well get to right now, and it's down in third grade literacy, which I think is great. The last bullet point on third grade literacy has a do not in it that we need to get rid of. It creates a double negative in the statement. So less than 80% of male students achieve proficiency in literacy by the end. Instead, there's a do not between students and achieve that just needs to go.
I tripped over that as well. I was trying to figure out, does this mean 20% or greater?
Yeah, so
did not
basically more
pass?
than 20% of male students fail to achieve proficiency, and less than 20% of female students fail to achieve literacy. But just getting rid of the do not makes the sentence make sense and jive with the data. And I had one. I'm glad we've got third grade literacy in there. I mean, honestly, but that's one of those inflection points, learning to read and reading to learn. I wondered if it would be worth simply stating that the third grade literacy, yes, is a key indicator, but we see almost the same gap trends at the end of 5th grade and at the end of 8th grade. And so it's at the end of elementary, at the end of middle, and at the end of the whole system. We're seeing similar gaps. And third grade literacy and graduation are nice, but they're visible in almost every subject. As long as we got enough data, you can see it in the math just as you can see it in literacy. So I wouldn't mind including something that says that third grade literacy is not the only place that we're seeing significant gaps through the system. These persist all the way through as a kid rises through the system. And I know that makes it longer, but at the same time, dang it, let's put it in. So
we're not going for brevity. We passed that a long time ago.
Yeah.
Director Sage, you go first.
This is not in direct relation to what Director Carlson just said. So if you have a thought, go ahead and complete that before I know. Okay. So under the third grade literacy, we talk percentages in every bullet point, but we don't write it out as a percent in the third bullet point for low-income households. And I think it helps me to keep track of what percent of kids we're really talking about if we actually put greater than 50% and write it out numerically.
Yeah. There's me.
Very much along that, just playing off of what you just said, it's always helpful when you're doing comparative listing that it's always in the same direction. So if it's 50 to 60% of SPED students are not achieving proficiency, 42% of African American students are not achieving proficiency, greater than half of students, so put the actual number in there. But then when you get to male versus female, it should be more than 20% and less than 20% are failing to achieve. It's always the same direction, so you can directly compare the numbers.
If we could shift that to not be failing to achieve, but say did achieve, do that component instead, that would be preferred.
Yeah, so that would just be turning the other three around, but it would still give you the scale of what's missing. So
So that's a key point. Do we want the third grade literacy to report percent of students achieving or percent of students not achieving? And then I'll go through and redo this so that it's consistent throughout.
From one side, I would prefer to see an asset-based approach where we're really utilizing that language going forward. On the other hand, as it is sort of this is the call to action piece of why we need to do that. In some regards, it's here's the gap. And so I guess I'm torn is what I would say based on that statement.
I'm inclined to go with the latter because, again, we are pointing out inefficiencies or insufficient efforts, and we want to point out that we have miles to go as opposed to miles we've already come, because no one cares about the how far we've come so far. It's a matter of closing the gap, because that's what we're addressing, the gap.
is there a way we can change the verb on it? Achieving proficiency is putting it on the students, and it's the system bringing it to proficiency is bringing our students. I don't have an easy solution to it, but I would like it to be a systemic verb rather than a student-based.
Yes, I like that.
That's the piece I think would be key, because you're right. I think that it does imply student, and that's not the goal. It's that we have not succeeded at this point in time.
Blame kids. It's our fault. We would like to bring them all, and it's our failure, not theirs.
And we believe we can do so.
Right. Exactly. To own it.
And I will say we actually had that conversation a couple times in our meetings with Dr. Hallman, because it's not a student's fault that they're not achieving at, proficiency or anything else.
It's the system we're trying to improve, not the student should not be blamed for the system failure.
Yeah. So if there's I'm sorry, just off the top of my head, I don't have the language to reframe that, but I'm pretty sure we can come up with something. Just not jumping to my tip of my tongue.
I have a few minor things, but I'll start with more of a structural. It's just the order of the, I'll call it headings and segments of the recitals. I'm just wondering. Well, I'm curious if there was any thinking as to whether, I guess we'll call it the prior actions of the district and the placement of that, and whether the data section should have been hot before that, or could have been before that. Just the structure. So right now it reads, we have goals. There's a section called actions, which is, it's really historical actions of the district and the board. And maybe that should be relabeled, because that suggests that there are actions that we're taking with this resolution, and that's not the case. And then it's data. I guess that's current data. And so it makes sense to have that follow. I think that, now I'm talking aloud with this, I think it makes sense to have it follow current historical actions. That's current data. And then, okay, so I guess I'm okay with the structure. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think through it as I was talking.
No, I think you're onto something, because the words, the structure, the order may not be wrong, but the words, data is too neutral. This is a listing of the gaps that we are concerned about. This is truly calling out for us where we are not performing at a level we would like to be. We would like to close these gaps. And so is this gap analysis? Gap analysis is just mumbo jumbo.
Well, okay, and then the point I was actually then eventually going to get to, which is I know we were praising the headings earlier, but I would scrap the headings. I don't know. I'm fine with all of the recitals. I think they're clear and make sense to me. The order is fine, but when I see the headings, I don't want to interject a statement with the heading that's maybe not accurate.
Well, the actions, you can put actions to date, or the phrase you were using earlier, I think, Chris, was historical or past. But, if we put a sword in the sand at this point, I think you'd refer to it as actions to date.
Director Sage?
I just wanted to clarify that Director Carlson, when you're talking about these two different categories being the gaps we're concerned about, there's actually a lot more categories of gaps. So I just wanted to clarify, we know this is not just two things. Yeah. We know it's more.
Yeah.
It's referred to as includes.
Yeah.
But not limited to.
But Eric's point, yeah, gosh, there's a fine line to be walked here, because, in between your whereases, oof. Not a huge fan of the whereas structure, but I know that's how a resolution works. There's probably I still think there's value in having the sections be delineated, but the titles, data, and actions need more specificity to why they're a section. But yes, I appreciate the challenges involved in this. So thank you.
I guess my point is, if we're having headings, it's almost as if we're drawing broader conclusions and about the words that follow the headings, right? And
you can't put a bullet.
I don't know if we want to do that.
Around statement. You're right. it doesn't work with the whereas structure. So I'm with you, Eric. And we could get rid of them because really we could incorporate after that first whereas. So where it says data, whereas this board believes, but it could be data, whereas this board has identified significant gaps in performance for historically marginalized groups, such as, and then listing things off, we can move the title of it into the next whereas statement, the section title.
Director Stewart?
I'm looking at it, and I think I'm only seeing it in one place. I was trying to scan before you called on me to see if I saw it any other place, but are we being current in our terminology? We say Hispanic/Latino. Should it be Latinx? Should it not have the Hispanic? Should it be African American? I just want to make sure that we're using current terminology, not terminology from the 60s, when some of you weren't born.
No, thank you, Mark. On the second bullet under graduation, it should say Black/African American. These are the race, ethnicity titles that OSPI, how they report data back to us, and that's why we've consistently used these. There's a slash there that needs to be put in there for Black/African American. Thank you for catching that.
Okay, no, again, and if that's the kind of the way the categories that come down to us from the state, so we're trying to fit apples to apples with them, I understand then.
When we're ready, I've got a eureka on how to rephrase it so it doesn't blame the students.
Please provide your eureka because I'm stressing on this end.
That's all right. So if you look at in data, just before the first set of bullet points, so just leave it right where it's at. 8 years of data shows, and it states that students receiving, instead of that first bullet point, I would replace it with our system graduates students from our special education programs at a rate 20 to 30% below peers. Our system graduates Black and Hispanic Latino students at a rate 10 to 25% lower than peers. That, I think, makes it clear that we're trying to figure out how to make the system work better.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. I support that. Absolutely.
Do we want to say our school district versus our system?
Good question. I don't know.
I think it's more. I think it's clear.
It would be clear. Yeah.
No, it is clear. I mean,
yeah.
System.
But it's us owning these gaps rather than the students being blamed for them.
Yeah.
And knowing that, but it adds to taking responsibility for the current system. And it acknowledges that errors have been made, or failures have been made, and it's been made by us.
So that works.
I guess I completely agree with Chris's provision. Also, with the change suggested by Director Belisaner using our school district instead, I think that's just plainer English.
So that was great for graduation. It's trickier for third grade literacy. I'm going to keep wrestling with that one, John.
Yeah, I think the same concept makes sense of rephrasing it. I don't have the words right now, but
I would say, Chris, I think of the globalness that you brought forward, that we've seen persistent gaps as exemplified through third grade literacy that go throughout the P12 system. I think that was a clear piece.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to make it, how to describe the gaps and to own the gaps rather than blame the gaps.
Could it be in the introductory whereas, say whereas third grade literacy is key, as opposed to getting it down, putting this school district down in the bullets? Would that help? Would that?
Well, and that actually, yeah, but practically speaking, it becomes more of a matter of you could phrase. So let's talk about the between 50 to 60% of students, that bullet. The rephrasing would be our school district brings 40 to 50% of students in special education programs to proficiency in literacy by the end of third grade. Again, it's our school district educates kids rather than the kids failing to meet it.
Yeah.
John, you're looking up and to the left, which means you're trying to imagine this.
So there's a couple of pieces for me. One is the system's doing its thing, yet at the end of the day, there's an outcome for individuals. And so is it that we take ownership for the system, but then we actually acknowledge that we actually have individuals that are having this level of achievement, but tying it back to the system? Because it is true that, 50 to 60% of our students receiving special education programs and services, individually, they're not achieving proficiency. And so that is an impact on them individually. And so is there a way to acknowledge that while also tying it to the system?
Well, so another way to look at it is this is about our school district success and how we're going to define success for ourselves. And part of that would be to say our school district brings 40 to 50% of students in special education programs to proficiency in literacy by the end of third grade. It's saying our system brings them. And now you've got this gap. There's that means that X numbers, our system fails to bring a certain fraction of students to proficiency by the end of third grade. Gosh, sorry, I'm going to have to take a moment to think. This is hard.
Well, I think what we've got here is the same way we had earlier, where we talk about what the system hasn't done, and we talk about where the failure is, as opposed to where the success is. So the failure to help these students is our failure as a system, whereas the achievement of graduating or achievement of literacy is really the student, to be quite frank. We're providing the building blocks, and it's a question of how well we're building them for the student. Are we giving them sufficient number of blocks? Are we giving them a sufficient number of materials that they can have the tools to do what they need to do?
And I think this is where MTSS, when it's implemented district-wide, will help us see the kids at the individual level and what it is that they might be missing that the system can then correct or help with.
I agree.
So similar to that,
I think, Sarah, you're muted and then unmuted.
yeah, for whatever reason, my computer's being very slow right now and updating itself and throwing me off. I think that first sentence in the piece above with graduation is what's missing with the third grade literacy, in the sense of the standards being hit, right? That we must provide the resources and support to ensure each student will meet standard. I'm not doing a good job wording it either, but I think that's the piece you're speaking to, Chris. And that third grade literacy is an example. Purely, there are others we could utilize.
I guess I'll just go with a few minor things real quick. I don't know that, okay, so the very first whereas, which is quoting from part of our mission, there's a comma before the end of the quotes. I think we just cut that comma. Just at the end of the quote. That guy. Yeah. I have everything else is fine there. I still think we remove the headings. I don't know if that got any traction with that, but I'll say it again. Under
I am good with removing headings.
Okay. I assumed that they were put in place as placeholders to ease it, to make it easier to draft and think through, make sure everything was covered, but
Because we were moving things around, it just
Yeah.
helped to say, where does this fit and
Yeah.
how might it go? Yes,
Yeah,
that was its purpose.
it helped me in reviewing it too and thinking through it. I just think in the final, I would recommend removing them.
Could we just get
In fact,
could we get a collective head nod around that? And I can't see anyone's head nodding, so if you can let me know.
I'm nodding. Chris is doing thumbs up. Siri's nodding. Cassandra sort of nodding. And Mark's fine with it too. Okay, so I guess we're great. We're okay removing the headings. And earlier, I think I made a comment around the order. I know the extent I said I didn't like the order, I disagree with myself now. I think it's the right order.
By not any harder, I'm going to get whiplash.
Under in the action section, the second whereas, the third bullet point, I don't know. It's just something's wrong there. I think it's probably the creation of a director position is. I mean, the colon is since 2017 through, creating a director position. I don't
Or
the creation of.
created.
I don't particularly care how it's phrased, but. Everything else is great. In the whereas the quotes from our June 2020 proclamation or resolution, I can't quite recall. Was there a title? What was the title of that proclamation? Does anyone? Siri, you probably recall. Can't hear you.
I do not remember the title.
Okay.
I know we.
See if I can find it. I just wanted to have since we're quoting. I just want to have a little more. I was hoping we could have a little more precision about how and when we said it. I mean, it says when, but how. Well, I'm not helping. I'll see if I can track that down. But and then I'm fine with everything else.
So
I have one more minor thing, but I'll just wait till we get a little further down.
So I in chat, I just gave you a proposed restructure of the third grade data statement.
John, could you scroll the screen share of the policy to where that? Sorry. Thank you
John,
for
we
doing
appreciate your.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's
Let's see, I just pulled up chat so that I could see Chris's recommendation. 5 years of third grade literacy data shows that our district only brings 40 to 50% of students to proficiency, or just only brings. I'm okay with that, or others as well. Let's see, Chris, you're muted.
Thanks, John. If you just could scroll down by a couple of paragraphs so we could see the bottom, the bullet points for third grade.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Great, thank
basically, where it says 5 years of data shows is the preamble to the bullets. This is where I'm replacing.
Director Sage, your hand went up, I think.
It is up, but it's about a different piece that I just came across. So if you want to finish this thought, go ahead.
Yeah, let's do that, and then we'll come right back to you.
Okay.
It's interesting. So the word use of only here is I'm fine with it, but it says something more than just the date.
It's got judgment associated with it, yes.
What's that?
It's got judgment. 40 to 50% is not enough.
I agree. I just want to make sure everyone else saw that.
No, I'm glad you
it's
picked up
making
on
a
it.
normative judgment about it as well, which
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, yeah, thanks. I'm fine with this.
Anyway, so John, does this work for you as a structural ownership piece? Yeah, okay.
It does, yes.
Okay, so then Chris, where you have et cetera, I'm just going to speak it aloud.
Oh, it's just there are other dimensions. There were 2 more bullet points, and I'm a slow typer.
Yeah, and it would just essentially just mirror that for each one, that structure.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Now, success. So
Sorry,
the one up,
dramatic
so just
pauses. Yeah.
for whatever reason, my internet is really slow right now.
You may want to just turn your video off to see if we can
Yeah, that might help.
hear you.
Okay, we'll try that. Actually, you're all much better. That was a good idea. Thank you. Is the one piece is I think back to the preamble, we do speak about language as being a component. We did not put the ELL information in there based on the fact that typically on these standardized tests, we know what we need to look at is the exit ELL program, and what we've seen in that data is it appears that our efforts in bringing that through, they do very well in regards to that. So that gap does not appear to be there when we do so. However, within the ELL program, absolutely. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't other barriers and challenges in being engaged within our system based upon language that we need to address. But that's part of the reason that component was not put in here.
That makes sense to me. Thank you, Director Bluesner, for highlighting that.
Could you run that past? Could you say that one more time, Siri? I'm not sure I caught you.
So when we have looked at the data, you have students who are currently within the ELL program, which means that they're learning English language at this point in time. We've also looked at the data of those who have exited the ELL program. And in looking at that data, it appears as we look at the standardized assessments that we had, and of course this is 2 years ago because we haven't had anything since then, that their outcomes to non-ELL students who've never been in that were aligned without a gap within place.
After having participated in ELL.
Upon exit of ELL or
Okay.
after having been a prior. So it's different when you're learning the language and you have to take a test in English and you're still learning English to do so.
And
Do we look at low income and third grade literacy?
Yes.
Is it under the third grade
Third bullet.
literacy? Third
it's the
bullet?
third bullet. It just doesn't have a
Okay.
number assigned.
Gotcha.
It's a big
Thank you.
gap.
There, see, I did it again because I didn't
Yep.
see it in a numeric form.
It's funny. I
Thank
didn't
you.
see it either because it didn't have the number. Yeah.
That's all right.
Um,
Siri, I agree with you. It's
Yes.
that is a gap that exists, but it's not one that we're currently. I don't know what to call it. It's not that we're not worried about. We will continue to monitor it, but the exited from ELL data, the gap is indistinguishable statistically. So we feel like that program is actually. I use that as an example of something we're doing for equity that works.
Director Stewart.
Yeah, and this isn't just about this document, to be quite frank. I've had trouble with this phrase over the years, and I want to make sure that we're using really, when we say exiting the ELL program, carry a negative connotation for some people. I think I might, if I was told I'd exited a program, it might say that I didn't exit on the best of terms. If I, successfully completed, that's what, you see where I'm going? And again, it doesn't just apply to this document, but all of our references to the completion of ELL.
So I will try to be more clear with that. Yes, exited as I was defining was successful completion of the program. That is the definition.
I agree, but I'm just wondering if parents, when they see it on any document, I can see them misinterpreting, and I hate to have that happen.
Yeah. I agree.
I can follow up to staff on that. I believe that, again, is an OSPI term that they use for a specific program of service that we provide to students that have successfully completed and tested to take their next step of their educational journey, because we actually do provide follow-up support, which is different than ELL services, but follow-up support to students that no longer are participating in the ELL program.
I'd be in favor of adding a parenthetical phrase afterwards, but that's me.
It's funny. That had never occurred to me, Mark, but I don't think you're wrong. I mean, that's ed jargon that OSPI, we have to speak that when we speak to OSPI, but when we're presenting to the public, we wouldn't need to use that term per se.
Yeah. But that's the only thing that bothers me, because I don't want anyone thinking that that they have failed when they've actually succeeded, or they have exited just because they ran out of time in that program.
Yeah,
or they've reached a certain age, and so you're booted out.
Yeah.
See where I'm going?
Yeah. It had never occurred to me that it could be interpreted that way, but when you look at it from the HR world, it could be. So I hear you.
Yeah.
I have nothing up until the statement of purpose. So we're trying to move through. Does anyone else have anything? I guess, sorry, it's the resolution part of the resolution is what I have. Just a question, I guess. But I don't want to jump too far ahead. Anyone else has anything else in the partnerships section?
Yeah, can I add just a piece here real quick? In the draft that Siri had sent, she had put in brackets, our inclusion work, and so I just wanted to recognize that for both Director Sage and Director Bleasner that I added this piece, just to be specific about who we are partnering with around our inclusive practices work.
I noticed that, actually, because I was thinking Tie Center, Minnesota. Got it.
Is that on a different screen?
What do you mean?
The reference to the. Oh, there we go. Never mind. Now we're in sync.
Okay. I have a question. This came up at our last meeting. Somebody brought up an equity analysis tool for review, analysis, and decision making. Could somebody? I'll be honest. I don't know what that is. What an equity analysis tool is. I don't know what that means. Somebody explain it to me.
So I'll take a run at it, and I don't know if there are others on the call. I think I saw Dr. Ross and Sally on the call as well, if they have additional feedback. Let me just give it history as a school district, we actually were required from OSPI last spring to adopt an equity analysis tool as we conducted our planning efforts for the school year, as we were planning for return to in-person learning for students. We were required to also in that adopt an equity analysis tool. Ultimately, what it does is it provides a structured way for individuals or groups of people to, in a structured way, have questions that cause you to think about how is this impacting those that we are making decisions about. So it might ask questions of who's impacted by the decision that you're going to make, who is part of the process in determining the ultimate decision and outcome that's being decided, who wasn't represented through this decision. So it causes you to just really think through in a structured manner some really key equity questions that ultimately then leads to kind of the theory of action is if we use an equity analysis tool, our decisions will be more aligned with our values, have better outcomes, and in terms of this, it would be supports our operational expectation 14.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm looking real quick on our website because I know it's listed on our website. I'm just making sure I can find it for you. So I'll try and put a link in the chat to our equity analysis tool that we have that we adopted.
Okay, so then I guess the question is what we're committing to, so I should understand what we're committing to. Are we committing to using the equity analysis tool? It's a question probably for the board. And is the thinking that we're committing to use the equity analysis tool adopted by the district or just to utilize? I'm sorry, let me try to ask it more articulately. Is the thinking that we're going to use the equity analysis tool that was adopted as per OSPI recently, or that we're going to seek our own? Any thought on that yet?
Can I offer a comment real quick?
That'd probably be helpful.
So as I was doing some, I'll just say 10 to 15 minute searching of either literature or professional resources that school boards are using in terms of equity analysis, I think there are some, and I know NSBA has some equity analysis frameworks that they've developed. I think I just got a link sent to me the other day from NSBA around that, so I looked into that. So I think there are some frameworks that are specific to board work that would be very specific to kind of the outcomes and the discussions the board would be having. So for me, I would want to make sure that the tool that's adopted is truly aligned with board work.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Great. I concur. Director Carlson, then Director Stewart.
So within the statement of purpose, the second bullet, I would propose we break into 3 bullets. Because if you just put a period on it after discipline, discipline is an area where we care. Then repeat pretty much everything and end with academic outcomes. And then the third bullet would be everything after expand equitable access. So it's because we're trying to expand efforts to identify and address disparities, and disproportionalities really applies to discipline. It's not something that I think of in general as the verb that I apply to academics. And academics is important and discipline is important. I feel burying them in the same bullet gives each of them too little weight.
So disproportionality is, so I'm just, as you said that, it made me think of what are the other places in the system where disproportionality is used. So qualification of students into special education, we actually currently have significant disproportionality in terms of our Hispanic Latino students qualifying at a disproportionately higher rate than peers. And so we actually are specifically working on that. And so disproportionality is also used in terms of qualification for special education, but I would agree it's not a term that's typically used like in academic proficiency and things like that.
Right. But anyway, the verb wasn't the biggest issue for me. The biggest issue for me is that discipline is important enough to have its own bullet. And academic outcomes is important enough to have its own bullet, even if we're repeating much of the same language.
That makes sense to me.
Chris, if you have a suggested edit for that entire bullet, do you mind?
I'll send you one by email.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Chris, if you have time to even throw it in the chat today. Thanks. Director Stewart?
Yeah, I'm still struggling with the. I understand the purpose of the tool, and I understand why we need one, or some sort of system to determine if we're doing what we want to do. Yeah, are we achieving anything? But at the same time, because again of transparency, but also because of just for a parent that doesn't speak education ease or computer ease, I would love to see whether it's a footnote, if it's a reference to a part of the website, I don't care, but that actually explains what we're using, how we're using it, and why what we're trying to achieve by using it. I think we're trying to succeed by using it, to be quite frank, but in everyday language, I listened to y'all, and it sounded like what we need to do, but I'm wondering if the person off the street that isn't steeped in the jargon is going to hear it. You see where I'm going? I hear crickets.
Sorry, I do. I don't really. I guess my thought is I don't want to necessarily link to something that we're not going to use as our tool.
Yeah, no, I don't. I want to link to what we're using.
But if you recall, this started when I asked, saying I don't know what that means, right? So I do. Yeah. Yes, I agree that at least I did not understand necessarily what that meant when I read it. So yes, I understand. I share Mark's concern.
So what if we called it something like a formal decision-making tool for analysis and decision-making related to policies with a specific focus on equity? To kind of break it out like that, does that help, Mark?
Oh, I think it just adding even 10 more words makes it even cloudier. You see, again, it's the idea of putting it into plain, simple English, as opposed, all the terms you're using are very much jargon in the education world, in academic world. But I'm afraid they're not in the everyday world. And so if we could find some way of putting that down to a reading level that everyone understands, you see where I'm going, John? It's not a matter of throwing more words at it. It's perhaps what we're looking at is having a link to where you show what kind of system it is. You show how it works. You say, okay, here was problem X. We applied this tool to problem X, and here is what we came out with, or here's how we found out information. See where I'm going?
So,
I don't
Mark,
care what
are you talking about
as much as what it does.
Are you saying something along the lines of instead of utilize an equity analysis tool, saying systematically analyze equity in the review but
it's not. It's what we're committing to is not quite that. I mean, we are committing to utilizing a defined framework for a methodology for going about doing this.
Well, so instead of utilizing the equity analysis tool, use a transparent framework to review, analysis, and decision making. I think you actually just gave us the words.
Yeah, I think I like what you. Well, I gave you words. You gave me more. You gave us clearer words. I like what Chris just said there. I think to me that's clearer about what it is.
Can you repeat that, Chris?
Yeah, I'm putting in the chat right now. Use a transparent framework for review, analysis, and decision-making related to policy. Use a transparent equity framework for review, So it's basically just replacing everything before the word review in that sentence with use a transparent equity framework for review, analysis, and decision-making related to policies.
I like that. As we communicate what we've done when we finally adopt this resolution and the OE and the expectations, I would love to see, since we've spent all this time, effort, and angst of the public and our own angst, I'd like to see us go through and say, okay, now here's what can be achieved, or let's have a separate section in the website explaining the process, explaining how we'll analyze something, how this will be taken care of. I know that the OEs and the expectations should help, but I'd love to see something that people don't have to dig for in the website, talking about what we are trying to accomplish in our equity work, in our non-racism work, and how we're trying to go about doing this. So you see, it's great to adopt a policy, but if you don't communicate what you've tried to accomplish, it's not really adopting anything.
Would this be more of a community and family engagement on their page?
Yes. Well, it would be an engagement piece that we could use when we have meetings with the community, but also even before they meet, people could say, okay, here's what they've set up. They've set up a process. They are trying to accomplish X. They're doing Y. And as we go through, as we gather the data, we will then be putting in it, analyzing it. We'll be looking at the data, and then what we'll try to do from that data is A, B, C, D. So then when we do engage the public, we can say, okay, did we accomplish A, B, C, and D in your mind?
Agreed. And I think that's part. I mean, that's part of the monitoring process, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the idea is, once you got a policy, how are you going to use it? It's not good if you just put it on the shelf. And the public has to understand that you're using it. If you're using it and no one knows it, how good is it?
Well, I think I don't have it in front of me, but I know that continuing to work on the implementation of this policy is going to be, basically the next few months. So,
oh yeah, well I think it'll go on beyond the next few months. It'll be initiated.
I mean, but again, in terms of the indicators and John working on the interpretations, us agreeing on them, and then but that's what you're talking about is, and that will be communicated out at our meetings and it'll be posted, and I imagine we'll be hearing a lot from the community during that process.
And we'll need to be able to put it in newspaper, if you will, English as opposed to academic English.
Yeah, I agree.
So I have one suggestion on the bullet points that Chris had put forward and breaking those out. I think that made a lot of sense. I think the problem is we lose the connection that was done was by holding the superintendent accountable for the policies and procedures. That is how we would continue to do those things. So either we can separate that out in general, that we will hold the superintendent accountable to this, and it occurs across the board, but it's not just for that one piece that is applying to. That is my concern with the way it is written.
You're right. And in the interest of explicitness, I would just tack that clause on to all three.
Sure. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Not as pretty, but it's clear and explicit. I think that's fine. John, did you catch that? I don't know if you're doing you're basically
Yep.
flying a spaceship before we do this meeting.
So I believe what I heard was continue to expand ongoing efforts to identify and address disparities in academic outcomes by holding the superintendent accountable for the policies and procedures specifically related to OE 14, and then just add that clause to the next statement, continue to expand ongoing efforts to identify and address disparities and disproportionalities in discipline by holding the superintendent accountable. And then the third statement that's there. Is that accurate? Great.
That's accurate, and I made the edit and dropped it in the comments so that it's there as the last version too.
Thank you.
When we go out with this and we're communicating with the public, whether it's not only on the website, but also as we meet with groups, whether it's through linkages or any other meetings we have on it with organizations, we need to remember that just as we try and adapt or we try to make sure that the visually impaired or those who are not English first language people we have language that they will understand as well, that it's easily communicated. We need to make sure that you've done so. Otherwise, you lose probably half your public.
I have no other edits or thoughts for this. This is great. Anyone else have any? Director Bleasner?
Yeah, the bullet after the equity analysis too, the review, analyze, and revise is not grammatically correct. The end of it and address.
Inequalities, there's a period that shouldn't be there. And I would actually be comfortable with just excluding everything after the period. I think that's an editing or a versioning thing where that's a leftover. It's an appendix from something previously there.
So recommending just strike what I have highlighted here, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that covered somewhere else?
I'm not sure you can say it often enough, though, to be quite frank.
Yeah, no, that's an argument. If it's not explicitly somewhere else in these bullets, then maybe it's its own bullet.
Exactly. I would find a way to weave it in. I mean, even if you took out the period and yeah, just take out the period and leave that section in just because you can't say it enough.
I don't know. It's a pretty clunky sentence. I'm fine. I'm fine either way.
So the most natural home for this clause is the first bullet: address issues of racism, discrimination, marginalization, and oppression. And addressing, you could just say, by addressing systemic bias and inequitable practices at the end of that first bullet.
Yeah, that works.
I support just striking that highlighted text.
Chris was mentioning to move it to the first bullet. Are you recommending just strike it?
That's my opinion, but
Can I have a consensus on that?
I got a consensus of 1 so far. Director Blazer?
I am fine either way.
1
Sorry.
and a half.
Not helpful.
Same.
Okay, two. If we have 2 halves, that's not 2, right? Is that how it works? We're not voting, just to be clear. We're not counting votes either.
I think I'm generally hearing I'm going to move it to the first bullet.
So then the idea with that clause how would that read in the first bullet then?
Proposed reading in the comments. So
Okay.
address issues of racism, discrimination, marginalization, oppression, systemic bias, and inequitable practices in Lake Washington School District. So it's a natural home, and I got to use my Oxford comma.
Is that a new bullet?
No, this is just replacing the first bullet.
Great.
Yeah, that's fine.
It works. And having it up front really sets the stage for the rest of it.
I agree. Any other comments?
So in the, excuse me, I wish they were numbered, but the bullet that says review, analyze, and revise board policies. So we were just talking about the end of it. Do we think the word burdens is the right word there?
I mean, we could just, yeah, it is kind of, yeah. I mean, one idea is it could, instead of, I mean, we could just read review, analyze, and revise board policies and practice with an equity lens to ensure that they do not reinforce existing inequalities.
And I just make it explicit to make sure that the policies do not.
Yeah, okay, to ensure that that board policies and practices do not. Yeah, fine. Instead of they. Yeah, let's do that. So
Yeah,
just,
that's better.
yeah, review, analyze, revise board policy practices and equity lens to ensure that board policies and practices do not reinforce existing inequalities.
Yeah. The
Not a pretty
implementation of
sentence
those.
again, but it's explicit, so. And clear enough.
Thank you.
And thanks. Good catch, John. That you're right. Okay. Any other? Thanks, Chris, for doing that.
Last bullet here, I'm probably going to lowercase accountability. If for some reason accountability is capitalized.
Yeah.
Instead of and the feedback provided to the superintendent. There's something off on transparency and accountability in the monitoring of the policy with feedback provided to the superintendent.
I think the
Well,
intent.
okay. So I read it to be that we're committing to transparent accountability in the monitoring of board. I guess it'd be board policies. All so plural.
Okay.
And in the feedback provided to the superintendent. As, I mean, we're I guess to put into longer English, we're committing that when we monitor when we're monitoring all of our board policies, that it's transparent and we're holding the system accountable And then we provide feedback to superintendent on those policies, that it's also transparent that everyone can see the work that's going on, and if and when we do come up short, it's clear. Chris, did you have an idea?
Yeah, I am just not sure that it's. I think we actually accidentally muddy the water by calling out feedback to the superintendent as separate from our standard practice of monitoring board policy. I would just strike everything after monitoring of policy until as defined by our governance process. Transparency and accountability in the monitoring of board policy as defined by our governance process.
What about?
Sure,
I mean, I
the
think
public
it needs to
doesn't
be
understand our
plural. We have
governance
multiple board policies, so I just think it needs to be plural.
Right, policies. I can, fine. Yeah.
I still think we have ongoing confusion with the public as to what our processes are for governance. And to refer to it might be gilding it.
It might.
I don't know.
Do we have a page in our website that discusses what coherent governance is? We do? Okay.
If we do, it's not coherent enough for most of the folks to understand it because they still don't. Either we don't call it out well enough or don't pull it out well enough, and they can't find it. I don't know.
Well, maybe we can link to the page that discusses our governance type.
Good idea.
John, did those revisions make sense to you? Or not make sense? Did you at least capture them? I don't care if they made sense or not.
Yes, I captured them and they made sense. So
Okay.
bonus there.
And I guess we could, when this is posted online, can we insert links into the document? I think for having a link to our governance process or something explaining it would be helpful.
So yes, we can add links. So under governance processes, do you want me to just link to the page that describes the role of the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other?
So proposed edit on that last one is now in the comments.
I don't know if I like the word implementation.
Okay, that's why I wanted to get explicit feedback.
Because it's ongoing. It's not just to me that suggests it's when the policies are first put into place and being implemented and that we're monitoring. But that's not what we're committing
it's monitoring
to.
reports.
It's
You're right.
monitoring.
Okay.
It's ongoing.
Yep.
Continuous monitoring.
Yep.
So
Okay.
other than that, I mean, if you were to strike of implementation of there, then
Yep.
I think it makes sense.
Well, you could also say initial and ongoing implementation.
Just, it's not just.
That's not easy English, Mark.
Well,
I mean, it's the monitoring of our policies, and that's what it is to me. Yeah, what Chris just put in the chat. I saw John had something too. I like what Chris has better.
I just found that keeping the superintendent made it unclear who was monitoring.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, if we go with Chris's version, do we, at the end of the word process, do we say to keep the superintendent accountable? Or to keep, you see where I'm going?
Yeah, I know. I don't think we need to have that, but I know what you're saying.
Okay.
You raise an interesting question, Mark, because it's about who are we keeping accountable? Is this us keeping ourselves
Exactly.
accountable, or is this us keeping John accountable? To
be quite frank, it's both.
It should be both, and it can be interpreted as both. And I really feel like adding clauses actually muddies the waters.
I would argue that this is about us and that our governance process is about accountability with the superintendent. So it is captured there.
Yeah.
So. Right.
And I know it's not in lay English, but I don't think there's a way that we can translate this for casual consumption.
Well, there goes understandability.
Most clauses are understandable. This one just happens to be one where you have to actually do some research on what our governance process is to understand it.
And this is where the link is going, right?
Yes.
To the page on our website. Okay.
I think that would be perfect. Make a hot link.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments?
Nothing specific. I'm much more comfortable with the language of OE14's directive. This, I feel like I still need to sleep on it and give it another run over 3 or 4 times tomorrow. So I apologize if we need to make some amendments on the floor before we make the proclamation.
Okay. If you have any in advance, could you communicate?
Yeah, I'll distribute if I come up with any. I need to sleep on it. I'm not sure I don't have any yet.
I appreciate that.
So process-wise, excuse me, I'll update this and get the board a copy first thing in the morning, so you can see an updated resolution. And if there's comments, definitely loop Eric in, and we can make changes if need be.
Yeah. I think even if there are comments ahead of time, we'll still bring forward. I mean, this will be what we have after tonight is what will come forward, and we can make edits through motion. I guess through motion at the meeting.
Sounds like a great plan.
Okay. Any other comments on the resolution? Thank you, everyone who worked on turning this around in unbelievably fast time, particularly John and Siri and Cassandra. Thank you.
Can I just recognize that both Director Sage and Director Bleasner, I believe they met with me 4 times last week, specifically working on OE14 and or the resolution around OE14. So in each of those meetings was, I think the shortest one was 35 minutes, but the other 3 were 60 to 90 minutes. And so it's a lot of time they put into this. So I really appreciate that support of this work.
Yeah, incredible. Thank you. Yeah, looks good to me. Okay, anything else before we close for tonight?
So just quickly, I want to say, I do recommend the sleep on it, Chris. I totally get the need to be able to sit through things. I know I woke up at 2 a.m. after having seen the first one and said, oh, maybe this is the angle we need to be thinking about. So appreciate that needed as you go through it. And so encourage everybody to sit down and really think through it. Is there something glaringly missing that we didn't call out? I know one piece I keep thinking about still is our workforce and the value of living in a multicultural world. And a diverse world and that shift, the value of having a very diverse and multicultural staff in which to be within that environment. That really, to me, is sort of one of those values that we speak to. So I'm not sure that is captured here. I know we have it within the policy as a statement, but I'm not sure the overarching value that we recognize that as well as a huge value for our students. And I mean that in a very broad sense of diversity and multiculturalism across the board. So those are the sorts of things I'd say if you see something glaringly missing.
Okay, so let's
Eric,
see
can I just
here.
make a suggestion real
Please.
quick? You know, I wonder if we just take the first 30 minutes of the study session tomorrow, just set it aside to make sure that we're clear and good with the resolution, and then Diane can take that back, finalize it, get the final uploaded for that evening's meeting.
I'm fine with that. I guess I'll say these words aloud. Are we okay adding that to the agenda for the study session at this point in terms of OPMA compliance?
I'll check with Diane after the meeting and make sure.
Okay. Yes, assuming we can do it, let's do it. Okay, 6:48. We are at the end of our agenda. Any last questions or comments from anyone? Okay, so then since there are no other items, the September 12, 2021 study session is adjourned. We meet tomorrow starting at 4 p.m. For a study session, followed by our business meeting at 7 p.m. Both are being held remotely using the Teams platform and broadcast on the district website it's available for viewing under the board tab. So thank you everyone and have a good rest of your weekend. See everyone tomorrow.